Hello and welcome back to my channel. This video is about principles of costing, and today we're going to talk about cost behavior. Cost behavior are classified into four types. First is variable costs. These are costs that vary as the level of activity changes. Next is the fixed cost. These are costs that stay constant as the level of activity changes. Next is semi-variable costs. These costs are the combination of variable and fixed cost. And the last one is stepped cost. These are costs that are fixed to a certain level of activity, then goes up to another fixed amount up to another certain level of activity. So these four are the costs in the production, which are categorized based on their behavior or how they vary per level of activity. Now let's go through them one by one. First, variable costs. We can see here two graphs. The first one is the total variable costs compared to the activity level. And the second one is the variable cost per unit compared to the activity level. Let's analyze this first graph here first. This line shows the total variable cost. Let's pay attention to the total here. And this line shows the activity level. The activity level here is the number of units produced. And this line shows the relationship of these two. It shows that the total variable cost increases in proportion to the activity level. An example of variable costs is the cost of raw materials. For example, the total costs of materials to produce 10 tables is 1,000. The total cost to produce 50 tables is 5,000. The total cost to produce 100 tables is 10,000, and so on. So as the number of units produced increases, the total cost of raw materials needed to produce them increases as well. Now let's analyze the second graph here. This line shows the variable cost per unit. Let's pay attention to the per unit here. And this line shows the activity level. And this line shows the relationship of these two. It shows the activity level increases, but the variable cost per unit is still the same. Using the same example, we can see that to produce 10 tables, the cost of raw materials needed to produce each of those tables is 100. To produce 50 tables, the cost of the raw materials needed to produce each of those 50 tables is still 100. So no matter how many tables are produced, the cost of the raw materials for one table is still 100. These two graphs both pertain to variable costs, but again, you have to pay attention here to know which variable cost you are comparing to the activity level, either the total or the per unit of the variable cost. Next, let's move on to the fixed cost. We also have two graphs. First one shows the total fixed cost compared to the activity level, and the second graph shows the fixed cost per unit compared to the activity level. Let's analyze this one first. This line shows the total fixed cost. Again, let's pay attention to the total here. And this line shows the activity level or the number of units produced. And this line shows the relationship of these two. We can see that the total of the fixed cost is still the same as the activity level increases. An example of the fixed cost is the salary of the factory supervisor. For example, the annual salary of the factory supervisor is 30,000. For that period, the units produced are 100 units. If the units produced are 500 units, the total salary is still 30,000. Or if the units produced are 1,000 units, the total salary is still 30,000. So no matter how many units are produced, this cost is fixed. Now let's analyze the second graph. This line shows the fixed cost per unit. Let's pay attention to the per unit here. And this line shows the activity level, which is the number of units produced. And this line shows the relationship of these two. It shows that the fixed cost per unit decreases as the activity level increases. Using the same example, if the units produced are 1,000 units, to get the fixed cost per unit, 30,000 annual salary of the factory supervisor is divided into 1,000 units, and we got 30 fixed costs per unit. If the units produced are 500 units, to get the fixed cost per unit, 30,000 is divided into 500 units, and we got 60 fixed costs per unit. It means that the salary of the factory supervisor is being spread over the number of units produced. So the higher the activity level is, the lower is the fixed cost per unit. These two graphs both pertain to fixed costs, but again, you have to pay attention here to know which fixed cost you are comparing to the activity level, either the total or per unit of the fixed cost. Next, let's move on to semi-variable cost. We only have one graph, so let's analyze. This line here shows the total semi-variable costs, and this line here shows the activity level. And this line shows the relationship of these two. We can see that the total semi-variable cost increases as the activity level increases, but it did not start from zero. An example of semi-variable cost is electricity with standing charge. The standing charge is the fixed amount up to a certain level of usage. So in this example, it's 40 pounds per month, and the number of units that can be produced is just up to 500 units. So we have to pay 40 pounds for 0 to 500 units of usage. If we have to produce more units, then there will be further electricity consumption, therefore additional charges above the standing charge. Next, let's move on to the last classification, which is the step cost. We have one graph as well for the step cost, so let's analyze this graph. This line shows the total step cost. This line shows the activity level. And this line shows the relationship of these two. We can see that the total step costs are fixed up to a certain level of activity, then goes up to another fixed amount up to another certain level of activity, and so on. An example of a step cost is the factory rent. For example, the factory rent of 50,000, which can produce up to 10,000 units. If the company wants to produce additional 5,000 units, they may rent another factory, which costs another 50,000. So they can produce up to 10,000 more units. So these are the 4 cost classification by behavior. We will still encounter this in the next video, which is about the unit and total cost and the overheads absorption. And that's it for today's video. I hope you find it useful. If you want to watch more videos like this, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.